Recording in progress.
All the 20 agenda. Article. Agenda. Public.
Out there. We don't have to recreate the wheel. And we have 20 months from when we got the approval of the town by a vast majority to do this back in March of 23, until the 2025. That's 20 months to do this work. It doesn't seem like in a short period of time to me for what we need to do. So I'm thinking that we should get ourselves on the move for this. And I think that what's happening is there's poor leadership from the Planning Commission. They don't do much planning. And there are many times when they don't have a lot to do in their committee work, so they leave and go home early when they could be working on these things. But then the head of that committee does not do...
That's just not appropriate, I think, to criticize.
I'm not naming anybody. Thank you. And I think that, and I will say that our chair, when we were doing the merger and if anything came up about global industries, you recused yourself, as would be appropriate. But you weren't even the chair doing that. You have a close relationship with this chair of this other committee. And when he is doing something irresponsible, there doesn't seem to be any pushback to him. And that's concerning to me as a resident when I see that. I come to meetings, I come to many meetings, and I really think that I don't see leadership in that form. And that's what I'd like to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Betsy. Anyone else like to speak during public to be heard? Patty Davis, come on up.
Thank you.
Happy New Year to you all too, and I'm happy to be here. I'm much better in person than online, so I'll just read it some quick. I just have an issue I have an issue with what was sent to our neighbors, and I'm not going to say any names. It could be staff, it could be manager, it could be you guys, I don't know, that sent a letter out to all my neighbors that basically stated on 11/30/23, and then again the same statement happened to be the same line. I'll read it to you in a January 2nd, 2024 letter that it was that you're going to be discussing E on the consent item. And so I know I can't talk about it, but I'm going to read the sentence that I have an issue with, and I'll tell you why. This lower portion of Sand Hill Road has historically been the preferred truck route into the industrial zone district off Allen Martin Drive. And you will see why I respectfully disagree with that and would prefer it be stricken from the record. And I've already sent letters out to all my neighbors to correct this. But anyway, I'm going to tell you why to make it simple. So I have been researching permit. Well, first of all, before I tell you this, Sand Hill Road being a secondary arterial Class 2 highway intent outlined in the Vermont Highway Capacity Manual states, and I'm still waiting for a call from the Vermont Agency of Transportation on this, but don't quote me, but this is what I've written. Both primary and secondary arterials, the role is they are not to penetrate identifiable residential existing neighborhoods. Our neighborhood is the largest neighborhood in the town of Essex in the suburban core. But getting back to number one, the lower portion of Sand Hill, the reason I want it stricken, I've done the research. I have been researching permit 4C0329-20. In this permit and in the subsequent settlement with the town of Essex, the developer was supposed to build an extension of Thomas Drive through the property and out to River Road. 75% of truck traffic associated with gravel pit and other truck uses was supposed to be diverted to River Road through the Thomas Road extension. There was a map and a traffic impact study dated July 12, 2016, submitted with the application. I have a copy that I will give you with map, and I will give that to you. The extension showed up in the site plans and was an important part of the truck traffic considerations, since 75% of the trucks were supposed to be routed out that way. So fast forward, this is the issue. Fast forward to 4C0329-21D, all of a sudden, there is a traffic study nearly identical dated June 6, 2016, so 1 month prior, and this time the overall development map included has an X. I put a big yellow X, and I'll give you this copy, over the access to and from 117 River Road. So from the Thompson Drive to River Road, you'll see the X. That X and June 6, 2016 traffic study continued to be resubmitted for several subsequent permit amendments. And I'm just getting started. It's a learning curve, 42 to be exact so far, and I'm looking at all of them. So I only want to deal with these two tonight. In closing, I want to just say that in the literature, a major street is commonly referred to it as arterial, and the terms seem to be used synonymously in this document. And one other tidbit, Sand Hill Road, way back when I started looking in 1978, was an urban collector, and then since changed to a secondary arterial, and it is abutting neighborhoods and going through neighborhoods, which is against a rule, but we'll talk about that rule after. Movement is the primary function, with a secondary function being land access. Where is the access management, my question, which is an essential component to preservation of capacity on arterial road, on all our roads in Essex? How can we have 30 corporations and industries And then in the last 10 years, 15 of those just developed without having a management plan in place for where the trucks are going to go. How can we do that? That's my question. You don't have to answer. In closing, in Essex, the differentiation between major primary and major secondary roads follows the designation of state versus town highways. The intent was never to have trucks penetrating our Forestdale R2 residential subdivision neighborhood, impacting over 139 homes, not 39 homes. Now, that may have just been a typo. So I read somewhere that it's 39 homes. That is so not true. It's affecting 139 at least. The intent was originally to have the trucks instead access industrial land via from Route 117 to get to Thompson Drive Extension to access these industries, and from the Thompson down to 117. And all the studies, you will see, I highlighted every single study and studied the maps. When they actually did the studies, historically, even way back, they were only looking at Thompson Drive out to Allen Martin, out to Route 15 and back. Never, ever was there a discussion about Lower Sand Hill being historic, a historic truck route. That is a fact. If you have any more questions, I would be glad to have you contact me. And I'm also going to enclose when the Suburban Hill Road was a collector. I also have a map from 2018 when I used to run at Saxon that fell off a tree, and I happened to have that showed, instead of the road being there, they're calling it the border. And that's where the road was, and you'll see in these two maps. But I'm not going to give that one to you. It's the only copy I have. But I can always Xerox it. So anyway, I don't want this to be a discussion. I just want to give you bedtime reading, my facts. It took a lot of time, some attorney background, all sorts of, I had a team help me. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Patty. Patty, if you have concerns with decisions that the planning commission has made, it should go to the environmental court, not to the select board. So that's
This
the-
needs to come to the select board. This is a management issue from the town. Because our road is a town highway, and I've already talked to Paul, what's his name? Paul, I can't think of the guy's name on the top of the head of my head. He's the head of the AOT engineer, and he's talking to his supervisor, getting back to me, to be sure. But it is a town highway. It is a urban arterial, used to be a collector. It's an arterial that you guys made into, and it was your choice, because it's a town highway, Sand Hill. Always has been, and still is. So,
Yep.
it's not a state, but 15.
Yeah, no, I
and
know
all
it's not
that,
a state
right.
highway, right.
It's up to you. It's your call, and I'm telling you why we don't like it, and we want, please, starting in March, no more trucks on our road. That's when everything expires. I asked for all the public records. I went through all those public records with a fine-tooth comb, and the bottom line is, a lot of them, doesn't matter what road they're on, because their blanket permits expire March 31st, and I'm asking you nicely, please, discontinue that access on Lower Sand Hill for our quality of life. We have a right to health, safety, and general welfare. We have that right. Thank you.
Thanks, Patty. Anyone else?
Thanks for letting me speak.
Yep. Okay, I see two other hands up online. Lorraine Zaloom.
Thank you, Chair. And Happy New Year. A couple things I actually was going to address, but twice now already I've heard the Chair say this is not appropriate, or, you need to go to the planning commission. To me, what's not appropriate when we speak is to not make personal attacks. If we're making criticism or critique of something that we view as not working here, it's totally appropriate to go to the select board.
Mm-hmm.
That is our right. So I struggle when you say that, because it was not a personal attack that Betsy mentioned. It was a criticism of the leadership in terms of, what's not working, what's working. And I think that's very important that we keep those open dialogues between constituents and not shut down that dialogue. So I hope that that's considered in remarks, especially coming from a chair, which is a position of power. And then secondly, in terms of Patty speaking, I didn't know she was presenting that today. I'm happy to hear that, because I struggle as well with the pollution and the noise pollution right in front of our houses, which is impacting many of us here who don't have voices because they're renters. And it is also appropriate for Patty to approach you because the select board is the oversight for the planning commission. We have gone to the planning commission a number of times for a number of years. So it is appropriate to come to the select board because you're the boss. So anyway, done with that.
So can I just clarify something there? I'm sorry, Patty. I didn't intend to imply that you shouldn't bring that discussion to us. I was just pointing out that if you want to object to any of the decisions that the Planning Commission has made, the appropriate path is through the environmental.
I did that through
Court.
Act 250 for the, I did go to the Act 250 hearing. We held them on for almost 4 months.
Yeah.
Chose not to go to environmental court because I was busy and couldn't get a group together at that time. But that was the plan, and the thing is, it's the trucks, it's not so much that the companies. I would like to see management of access, where are you gonna put these trucks?
Yeah.
That's the issue.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that I wasn't trying to shut you down. I was just telling you that if you had
Thank you for
sorry,
that.
sorry.
No, I thank you. Just the fact that you let me speak, I'm very happy, thank you.
Lorraine, thank you for highlighting that concern. And I think you had more.
I very appreciate that, Andy. It's important that we keep dialogue and discuss it can be at times.
And also, I did watch the GovOps meeting, and I appreciate you guys going there and presenting our charter. I struggled with your objection to the dates on the change to a DRB, and I struggle with that because I'm not seeing objections from the other select board members, and I have not heard the objections from the residents in terms of our voting, their overwhelming support for the change. And that the date was thrown in there because we were concerned that if we did not put the date in there, it would be continually put off, as it has been. And it also seemed, watching GovOps, that it was sail-through. There was no issue until you actually mentioned something where that basically would become a problem. So I was wondering if you're concerned, and I appreciate your concern, if Planning Commission or perhaps you would reach out or have reached out to Essex Junction to see how it went. Have we taken 5 minutes to do that and make a phone call? Because it is going to happen. And if there's, as the chair presented last time from the Planning Commission, he mentioned hiring a consultant. I would hope that perhaps we just pick up the phone and call some other municipalities that have gone through this change, including our neighbor, right after we separated. And within, it looked like it happened immediately after the charter change was made. So that's I was surprised that you expressed concern. And the other thing, I had written to Greg to offer my services to work on the charter committee. I attended almost all the charter committees. Greg said that the memorandum was approved by you guys, so you weren't adding any more charter members. But I do offer my volunteer services, given I was there, and Greg had expressed there were concerns over lack of quorum because there's so few people serving, and I think 2 or 3 didn't return. So I would like to throw that out there as well as an offer to the select board if they want to add a member or if that's something that you guys are interested in. And then one other thing, just to highlight, I want to thank Tammy Getchell and Greg too for the amazing town news notifications. They're fabulous. They're getting better and better every time. They're very efficient. The links are amazing. So just want to give kudos and a shout out to that. But in some of the work, I've been petitioning our residents, and in that work, I've run across a couple of people who are in really dire straits. One gentleman who was worried about losing his home. He's a senior. He's going blind, and he wasn't even aware that he's been paying taxes for over 20 years for senior bus that can accommodate his needs. So I'm wondering if maybe we're short-sighted in how we're getting that information out there to seniors who may be more and more isolated as they age, and if we can figure out a way to work on that. Thanks.
To respond to comments that both Betsy and you made about my testimony in front of the legislature or the GovOps committee, I did raise that concern about the timing And I was asked immediately after that, in that same session, whether or not they should do something to adjust the date. And I said no, because many, many people would be extremely upset if you did. And I got the strong impression from them that they didn't intend to touch that date. So I raised the concern because it was raised by the chair of the planning commission, and I didn't want to leave that unsaid. But again, I emphasize that many, many people would be upset, as is evident tonight by those discussing this, that the date is a priority, and I believe they understood that. So, but thank you for your comments. Thank you for bringing that up. Mary Post, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Andy. Well, I had something all written out, but listening to this discussion, there's no point in beating a dead horse, as they say. And I didn't want it to seem like it was against anybody. But I too just wanted to say that I was disappointed when I, heard what you said about the timing. And it just seemed to me that I know you're saying you're doing it, for the chair of the committee, but I also feel like it was just like one more chance for you to try to stall things. And that was disappointing to me. And especially when you chose to talk about the date because you might not have time to fill it with people that want to be on the committee. And the last time we were trying to fill committees when we became this new town of Essex, there were a lot of people, I think, that stood up and joined committees. It's the first time for years that I've seen this. And I myself had offered to be on that police and community advisory committee, but I got my application in too late. They already had enough people to choose from. And I just also want to remind you that a lot of people offered, myself and others that I know, offered to be on the Memorial Hall committee. And all I've heard back is that you've received my application and then never heard anything else. So I think people are willing to be on committees, but I just was really questioning, what was your, real motivation. But it's not to be an attack on you, because frankly, I do like you, Andy, and I enjoy our talks in the grocery store. Thank you so much.
I will confess that I had strong trepidation about saying the words that I said, but since I've said them, I can't take them back. And also, when they said, would it help to change the date? I had a brief hesitation there, and I said no. So that's where we are.
Thank you, Andy. I think I've got the same boat sometimes. Thank you.
All right. Patty, you've spoken twice.
Yeah, I just wanted to tell
Patty,
you-
if you want to speak, you need to come up to the microphone. Is this on a different topic?
I enjoyed being on the planning commission, and I really loved it, and I didn't want to leave, but it was because.
Patty, if you want to speak, you need. If you're going to criticize a member
No, I'm not
of the
criticizing,
committee,
I'm just
then
saying
please.
I loved being on the planning commission, so just a follow issue.
All right, thank you.
That's all.
All right. Anyone else wanting to speak or throw darts?
Mr. Chairman, at this time, seeing there's no hands raised anywhere here, I make the motion that we open the public hearing on the Essex Town Plan 2024.
Thank you, Don. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ethan. Any further discussion about opening the public hearing? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay, motion passes 5-0. We'll get the public hearing open.
Hello again. Happy New Year.
You too.
Just to recap, this is the second public hearing that you all are having on the town plan. Previously, the Planning Commission had one which followed over a year of public engagement and planning on the town plan. The next stop after here, if you all choose to pass on the town plan, it would be passed on to voters to vote at town meeting. And so with that in mind, tonight isn't, after the public hearing, you close the public hearing, it's not your Tom didn't necessarily approve the town plan, but it's to approve it to pass on to the voters to approve. So in the end, it's up to the voters. So I did, or the select board did receive one comment from the public that I'm aware of, that I have worked through some changes to it that we can talk about if you want to talk to the public first, and feel free to go ahead and do that. And then one other thing too, the packet was too large, so I didn't include the graphically designed version. It's still draft. There are some things that need to be fixed, but that's the general format of it. And what needs to be fixed is really just like a couple typo-y kind of things or format things, not the content.
Yeah, you want a picture.
All right, thank you, Catherine. Is there anyone who would like to make comment or ask questions about the 2024 Essex Town Plan? Yep, I see Leah, come on up and introduce yourself. And
You.
yes, please.
Hi, I'm Leah Pastel. I live up the northern part of the town on Essex Highlands, which is off of Weed Road. And I wanted to provide some feedback to looking through the plan. So the first thing I noticed, because of where I live, is that it claims that I'm in an agricultural residential area and that my house would sit on at least 3 acres. Well, that is incorrect for most of my development. And so there's a flaw in the plan there, that it's not taking into consideration all of the houses that are in that area. Another thing that came to my mind was it stated that the water capacity and the infrastructure for sewer and water were going to be targeted to new development, whereas people who've lived in the town and are in the conservation areas and the agriculture areas, we've lived there for a long time. Those houses have been there, or many houses have been there for a long time. And I think there should be some provision to support water and sewer for the homes in those areas. Because, for example, my development, we're mostly built, even though it's agricultural residential, we're built on ledge. And many people think that as the infrastructure comes out, that eventually we'd be connected to the town infrastructure. So I think the town plan should have some provision in there to support the people in case of an emergency. The houses on my development have been there since the early 70s. The rules about septic have changed. I think almost everybody on my street has had to redo their wells at some point to be deeper or to be hydrofractured. So I think the town needs to have some provision for those residents. So that was my first thing. Is there any question from you guys? Made sense? The other thing I noticed in the town plan that I would really like to have is an urgent care center. So I'd like some thought or provision to be made for where that could be. If you look on Google and you say urgent care near me, everything's in Williston, Burlington, Colchester, and there's really nothing out our direction. So that, I think, would be a nice add to our town. The other thing that I had, and I know this is probably pie in the sky and you will want to think about it for 10 years or something, but one of the places out in Colorado where my son lived was pretty progressive in their thought, and they actually put in the budget a small amount of money every year to buy recreational areas around their city, whether they were in the city or outside of the city, actually. And I think it might be something to consider about our town plan to work with some of the towns around us, that maybe we could jointly purchase some big piece of property before it's developed. So I thought I would mention that. But that's my input.
Thank you, Leah.
You're welcome.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Patty, come on up.
Thank you, Patty Davis, 9 Hillside Circle. This is very productive. I love it. I actually just printed out 4 pages from the 2016 town plan and highlighted what I like to see. So I'll keep it really short. Basically, for the R2 area, the whole area, not just Sand Hill Road, but there's so many houses, like 400. They're called neighborhood growth centers on page 94 in the 2016 plan. And I want this paragraph to be a requirement in the 2024 town plan. Because of past policies and regulations, nearly half of all homes in Essex are located on neighborhood streets, all over Essex, obviously, town, as opposed to major roads. The area is immediately adjacent to River Road, Sand Hill Road, Route 15, the town of Essex Junction boundary line, all have historically been town residential growth centers. These neighborhoods help create a sense of community, like the last person said, and future residential growth should be encouraged to maintain that development pattern. But we could also incorporate mixed use because we want all our neighborhoods to be a walkable community. As they say, all of the neighborhood growth centers are located within the town sewer service areas that I'm talking about, but we all want a community. We want it to be walkable. We don't mind mixed use, small, human scale development restaurants, because we have money to burn. And if we can walk our stroller right across the street, Sand Hill, and have smaller businesses, we could make this town a lot of money. So we also want to say that our schools, adequate streets, sidewalks, sewer, water, and recreation facilities should be maintained. Don't build it unless you can maintain it. The road along Allen Martin is over 35 years old. My husband trips and falls on his face many times because it needs to be repaved. But I'm not just talking about my spot. Just all the places that have residential, R2 is very important. That is your economic driver. We're the ones with the money. So I'm going to give you these 4 pages to, what I highlighted. They're tiny little paragraphs, and those are my 2 cents. So I'll give them to you. Is that okay? Thank you so much.
Thanks, Patty. Lorraine Saloon, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple questions. Of course, we have some more wet weather on the way this week. So, I'm backed by some wetlands here as well. And I noted when we're working on the ETC plan that the flood maps, the wetland maps that we were working on were very much out of date, 2006. And the state certainly doesn't do a great job of updating. I'm wondering if we coordinate with the state the updating of the mapping of the wetlands whenever we have a delineation that's presented to the Planning Commission for development, because I think certainly something that the state struggles with. One of my concerns in the quick changes that we've seen here just off of Route 15 is a huge amount of flooding and water problems that we've never experienced before. And my husband grew up here, so we know what the changes is. I've seen that we've gone up 3 degrees in 100 years in Vermont, and our growing season is now a month longer than it was in the 70s. So we have major changes that are happening that I wonder if we're ahead of the curve, behind the curve, or on the curve. So one of the important things to me in terms of accounting is we need to know accounting of trees, the flood resiliency, and the wetlands, because that all has great impact on that. In terms of what Patty was saying too, I agree. Hard to build more if we can't maintain what we have. I grew up in a neighborhood in Indian Acres in Essex Junction. We had 0 sidewalks because it was well developed with short streets and main arteries that went through. Extremely smart design, not seeing as much of that type of design being approved in this town. And that's a struggle. If we want to keep costs down in terms of not having to have sidewalks even, less developed, better. And then other things in terms of flood resiliency, speaking to the woman that spoke first, in terms of urgent care, one of the things for walkable communities are to have community health centers. I hope that we're also considering including community health centers as part of our town plan for flood resiliency or when we get cut off, because as climate changes, we're going to have to be more and more self-reliant. That includes food as well, and identifying where we can grow. So anyway, just a couple of thoughts. Thanks, guys.
Anyone else wishing to speak during the public hearing? I don't see any hands, so then do we close the hearing and then have discussion, or how does this work?
Maybe we can mention a couple of things just in case
Yeah,
there's
you wanna
any
respond-
follow-up comments.
respond, yeah, can we respond to any of this?
Provide you with.
Thank you.
This is the comment that was received regarding childcare, and it was a good catch by the resident.
This is the one you've already fixed though, right? Or you're going to?
It is not fixed.
Oh,
No, this came to our attention, to my attention today. I think
Oh,
it
okay.
came to you on Friday. So essentially, the catch was that the YMCA does not provide after-school programming for elementary school kids. But the Essex Junction Parks and Recreation Program has been contracted by the schools to provide that. And the Essex Elementary School does host school-based pre-kindergarten program, so that wasn't in there. The Head Start program is not at the elementary school any longer. So the suggested edits there you'll see in red and crossed out is what I was suggesting for changes. Ran this by Ally Vile, or we collaborated on it, and she agreed that this was the right approach.
Right, any comments or questions about that?
I was just gonna say, with kids 8 and 3, these corrections are absolutely correct and needed. So, good work, and thanks for the comment from the member of the public.
Okay, Catherine, is there any response we should make to any of the comments that you heard this evening?
My overall thought is that for the most part, I think those comments are not necessarily needed in the town plan. I think the R2 area comment by Patty that is still in there. She was quoting the old plan. I believe it's in the new plan. I agree with Lorraine about the wetlands updating. I mean, I think we do talk about the importance of flood resilience and understanding where our problem areas are. So I think that is covered. I think that's a great idea, though, to try to, I don't know if it might be working with Regional Planning Commission as well and trying to figure out how to be more responsive to the wetlands. Obviously, as Lorraine said, it does, during development review, it becomes more apparent where the wetlands are actually, somebody goes out from the state and takes a look at them and ground truths them. And without that doesn't generally happen. So if there's some way to figure out how to more accurately map those, I support that. I think the town plan does too already. Urgent Care Center, I think there is one coming to the Essex Experience.
There is.
So it's under construction right now, and I don't know its opening date, but it will be there. Water and sewer expansion has been pretty firm, the town has been pretty firm against expanding the sewer core. That's not a discussion that came up during the town plan process. I think it's a much bigger discussion to talk about it. So I'm not sure I would encourage putting that in the town plan at this point. Because we really haven't heard that from anybody else, is what I'm saying. So it's, I don't think it would be prudent to make a change right now.
And it is expected that any expansion there's really no possibility of expansion of the current waste treatment facility because of the Act 250 requirements or the state requirements of whatever they are, whether it's Act 250 or whatever it is, would be extremely difficult to do
Right.
a major expansion.
Yeah, and our policy really has been to try to focused development within our more dense areas. So that's where we want to see more growth. We want to see, maybe even taller buildings, but if not, just more growth there while we try to keep that outside of town or outside of that core area as rural. And that is really following what the state tells us to do as well. So we're mirroring the land use
So,
policy.
so Leah, did you want to, you come forward to the microphone?
First off, I'd like the plan to be corrected, so it doesn't say all the houses have 3 acres or more, because it's not true. And secondly, previous plans had a discussion about the existing infrastructure and extending that. And so I understand that you don't necessarily want to put it in this plan, but I think it's something to have a provision for when people's septic and well water starts to fail, what you're going to do. Because there is more development out where I live. You can just see the houses going up. So at some point, there's going to be some pressure. So maybe a study or something. But I don't think it's a new idea. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Leah.
So I don't think we've done a survey of all properties in that area to confirm that they're at certain acreage. So
Just look at the property tax records.
well, I'm just saying we haven't. So. And I don't believe this section was really changed from the last town plan.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, Ethan, go ahead.
So, as somebody who lives in 10 acre zoning and has a 4.5 acre lot, and I could be totally mistaken, but I had to do a bunch of research on my deed over boundary and something else. And I don't remember the exact year, but somewhere in the 90s, they changed the regulation to be this is 10 acre zoning, this is 3 acre zoning, but any property that was previously subdivided was grandfathered into the plan. But like I know currently to split land up in my area, it's 10 acres. So I don't know if it's in that area still 3 acres, but I'm on Osgood Hill Road, but I'm also agricultural. I'm actually part of my property is agricultural and part of my property is conservation, and then everything behind me is conservation, which is even larger. So I don't know when that exact update is. Like I said, don't quote me on a date, but I do remember when I researched my deed, there was a deadline that from this day on, all subdivisions meet this regulation.
Yeah, that's
That
what
zoning
I was.
change.
Yeah, that's what I was expecting. Right, anything that's existing is already existing, and then you can't do any new subdivisions.
Because my house was put there in 71, was when it was subdivided. It was a 50 acre farm at the time. Now it's 4.5, and they put a couple same identical manufactured houses on 3, 4, 5 acre lots, and then they kind of just everybody else around me has 20, 30, 10, 14. So I'm not sure exactly when the change was, but I do know there was
Yep.
some change there. So I don't know in that particular area if I think it's the whole region.
Okay. Tracy.
So on page 92, which is 98 in the town plan packet, I'm looking at line 3233. Would it be more accurate to say, instead of currently the districts contain some low density residential development on lots no smaller than 3 acres, would it be more accurate to say currently the districts allow for some low density, so that future development has to be on at least 3 acres, but it takes into consideration that existing development may be on less than 3 acres?
I think that works.
What line is that again?
3233.
3233.
Greg, do you want to comment?
Yeah, just to throw a little wrinkle into it, my memory is that the zoning regulations allow for planned unit developments, which allow for less than 3 acre zoning, as long as the overall lot has the average of 3 acres or more. So it's just one of those nuances that is allowed. I think the message, the intent is there, but there might still be these little hang-ups that are not 100% accurate without nuance after nuance after nuance. I don't have a proposed solution. I just wanted to put that out there so everyone's aware that there even in the future, there might be less than 3 acre lots.
Well, didn't Act one, that new Act 100 or whatever it was from the state that we still don't have all the information on, change that?
Right.
No, that wouldn't change lot size. It could change the number of units on a parcel, but it wouldn't change the lot size.
Okay.
Yeah.
Patty, did you want to comment? Come on up.
I was just gonna say that, it's almost like the cart before the horse. Is there a way that should we be, concerned with having, septic allocation, or you're getting on septic, at least in the town plan, everywhere? Not everywhere like agricultural, but like say residential, because many dense residential R2 areas in other towns are allowing mixed use, and those little shops, bike shops need septic, they need that connection. I guess my question is, after being on the planning commission, is the cart before the horse? Isn't it the town plan that gives that option, just to have a blanket, yes, we can have septic in certain areas, and then it's up to zoning to create, or the planning commission to create the new zoning regulation to it? That's my question. In other words, I know that you're all talking about a designated center, having one road, but because, like Colchester, where I grew up, it's so spread out. Like, we had the village, we had Mounds Bay. I grew up in Mounds Bay, and we had septic. My dad had his boat business down there, and it's.
So you've been saying septic. Do you mean sewer, or do you mean?
I mean sewer.
Septic?
Yeah, I'm saying that connection. Like, we're on in residential Forestdale. We have, everything is town sewer, town water. You know what I mean? We have all that. And say the industrial wants it too. Maybe the other areas of residential, like ours, we can put in the town plan now that we have the option to have that in those places too, so that when it's time for zoning and the planning commission to create new regulations, we have it in the town plan. Because we shouldn't just have one road, Route 15, be the town center, I don't think. I think you're gonna wait forever for the legislature to okay it. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but that's my 2 cents. So, anyway, that's all.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes.
Can I ask Aaron a question?
Can you ask who?
Aaron Meyer, is that appropriate? Or about sewer?
Yeah, sure.
Aaron, can I ask you a question?
You can ask, you might not answer.
Well, no, it's just my understanding of what I might not know about things, but correct me if I'm wrong, but everything on the north side of Browns River is pretty well secluded from ever being connected to the current system ever. There's too much of a low point. We'd be pumping and transferring through trucks. There would never be a connection across Browns River. To my understanding, that's
I don't know that I can make that.
right. Because elevation.
No, I mean, you can pump anywhere and pump it. It all goes downhill. I mean, you have to pump to get it downhill, but eventually it's all going to go to the city's treatment plant. A lot of those areas are outside our current sewer core. That sewer core here in the town of Essex has been used as a tool to help kind of guide development within the town to kind of, as Catherine was stating previously, to kind of keep the area that is accessible to connection to sewer connection, to kind of put all that development and that growth within this area and leave the areas outside of that alone. Now, eventually, in the future, I mean, I don't have a crystal ball. Could some of those areas see water? Maybe. I don't know. The likelihood is not very good.
Right.
Sewer, I don't see it in my lifetime. So.
I just thought it was important that we ask you for your opinion on it, and because it is something that I've heard a lot from a lot of people. Like, paving roads that are up there also, but realistically, infrastructure and feasibility of actually moving the fluids, vice versa. I mean, I think between the top of the hill here and the top of the hill over there, there's probably 400 feet elevation change.
A couple hundred, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's all a matter of how much it's going to cost to, and what exactly the impact would be to provide sewer service throughout those areas. They're not very densely populated, and then it comes down to a judgment call on how much money is the community willing to spend to sewer the whole community, versus the number of connections that are actually going to be connected to it. Because obviously, you stated previously that everything is zoned and structured by 10 acres. That's the minimum, right? So I mean, yeah, we can put PUDs on there, but how many connections are you actually going to get? Whether it's a viable solution to try to bring sewer all the way out to those areas in the town of Essex.
All right, thanks, Aaron.
Thank you.
Okay, I see Sharon Zukowski's hand up. Sharon?
Hi, to add to this whole sewer capacity thing, right now we don't even have enough sewer capacity within the sewer core for everybody. Because when they did the capacity study, I think in 2004, the way we got it was a lot less complex. So when the study was done, they took all the areas that had good perk. They were called, I can't remember if they were A or B. So anyway, type A areas weren't supposed to get sewer, so they weren't counted. And then type B areas were supposed to get sewer because they needed it. And then somehow along the way, we changed the map. So we just trade the sewer capacity around. And I worry that we're going to run out because we haven't done a official capacity study since 2004, and we're not sticking to the original map of that capacity study. So to go outside the sewer core would even reduce the capacity more. I'm hoping that someday we haven't done a capacity study in 20 something years. I mean, I think it's time to do that also before we start moving it out of the core. Anyway.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks. Thanks, Sharon. Aaron, did you want to respond to that?
Yeah. Capacity study within the core, that's done usually every 5 to 6 years. The last one was done in 2018. We're scheduled to get started on the next update here. I'm planning on probably this summer rolling that out. And we're trying to coordinate other things that are going on within the core as part of this capacity study, which we may talk about later on tonight. But yeah, so the last update was 2018 within the core, not outside the sewer core.
All right, thanks, Aaron. Okay.
Can I ask one more question in response to that?
Sure, go ahead, Sharon.
So, I thought the capacity study is done by our own public works or by an outside agency of engineers that do that specifically and are trained to that? Because I wasn't aware that we farmed it out to people that really have the expertise to do capacity studies for the town. I'm just curious.
Come on, back up, Aaron.
Sorry, Aaron.
No, you're fine, Sharon. Yeah, it's historically the capacity study, sewer capacity study, has been completed by Hamlin Engineering, a local engineering firm here in the city. They are the ones who were the original designers of our sewer system throughout the town of Essex. They've had the most history, and they're the most knowledgeable about our sewer infrastructure within our community. So. They are usually selected to perform the study and update their study every 5-6 years, like I stated.
Oh, cool. So it's not like the dam where we just look at it and hope that it's okay. It's actually an official study.
I can't speak to that, but I can definitely speak to the sewer capacity.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Sharon. Lorraine, did you have more comment?
Yeah, just a quick note, because I was thinking Catherine probably has run into this, but I remember Darren was the town planner at the time. Being from an engineering family, one of the newer engineering works that they were doing in the United States was point of use gray water recycling for like apartment complexes and condo builds and things like that. And I'm wondering, in terms of sewer capacity and some of our issues with lake and overflow and certainly Burlington overflowing all too often into our lake and causing problems with blue-green algae, if that's something that Catherine was aware of, or that we look at the planning commission level for future use and needing maybe some more extra land if we're going to do point of use gray water recycling into development and buildings. Thanks.
Generally, the planning commission doesn't look at anything directly to do with water or sewer because it's out of their purview. It's a state permit that is received. I think there's a good idea to be aware of new technology, and I think for example, maybe the Conservation Trails Committee could be addressing this, or maybe even the Energy Committee could be bringing it. And trails. Yeah, so I think that could be something that they could advocate for, but the Planning Commission is not going to push that on an applicant because it's outside of their purview.
Right, I wasn't talking about on an applicant. I was talking about just planning as a planning commission and things that for future and flood resilience and conserving the lake and things like that. Are those things that our planning commission ever so often looks at, or are there presentations to our planning commission of forward-thinking ideas so that we're ready for the changing climate? So it was just a thought. I wasn't sure if you were aware of that. I had shared that with Darren, and I know Darren's up at the I think it's at the county level now. So I don't know if he has influence as well at that level too. But I just put it out there because that would require more land in terms of planning when we develop. So anyway, just want to throw it out there. Thanks.
Any other public comments? Okay, so do we want to end the public hearing?
I make the motion that we close the public hearing on the 2024 Essex Town Plan.
Thank you, Don. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ethan. Any further discussion about closing public hearing? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Okay, motion passes 5-0. We've closed the public hearing. Now we can have discussion about what we heard. I know we had you handed out some proposed changes for about childcare. Sounds like everybody was in agreement with including those changes.
As long as
Do
you
you want to
can,
have more discussion about it?
we don't need to have another hearing if she goes ahead and makes them though, right?
No, they're changing as a result of the public
Of the
input
hearing,
during the
okay.
hearings. Right?
Mhm.
Yep.
If the changes were considered substantial to change the
Yeah.
meaning of the plan, then we
Right.
would, but these are not.
Any concerns?
Just one note, it's Essex Junction Recreation and Parks, not Parks and Recreation.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Good.
They put recreation first, don't they? Yes.
They do.
It's a good slogan.
Okay, that I did not know.
Yeah,
But no issue with
Are-
inclusion of that.
yeah. Are there any other changes that, I know, Tracy, you had commented about some language around the question of the 3 acres in certain portions of the town. Do we want to change any of that language, or?
I was thinking about that a little bit as we're sitting here. Could just take out this on lots no smaller than 3 acres, just take out that phrase. So it would say, agricultural residential district exists to protect lands that have an economic capacity for agriculture. Currently, the district contains some low-density residential development on lots no smaller than 3 acres, but are otherwise undeveloped except for uses associated with agriculture or forestry. So just take out that on lots no smaller than 3 acres.
Okay, everybody okay with that?
Okay.
Are there any other changes that we'd like to include? There was discussion about sewer core, or expansion of sewer and/or water. Do you want to comment on that?
I think that's for the future town plan after all the studies are done.
I was gonna say, I think that the discussion tonight just highlighted the fact that we don't have enough information. We need to talk about capital planning, infrastructure. We need to talk to the water sewer district. We need to talk about cost. We need to identify need, want, interest in doing so. So I agree with Dawn.
Is there anything in prior plans that aren't in the prior plan that isn't included in this one that maybe could be left in? I'm just trying to look now. Okay.
No, that sewer core hasn't changed for
Right.
years and years, and there hasn't been serious discussion about changing that.
Yeah. Okay.
Is the town involved in any of the wastewater permits for the residents outside of the sewer district? So that's completely with the state, right?
Right.
Yeah, so I would just offer that is the state purview versus the town plan.
And if you run out of water, you can ask your neighbor.
Yeah.
Haul it in. Yeah. Ask me how I know. $18,000 later.
There was some discussion about wetland maps and climate resiliency. Anything that we think we need to address there, or?
I was going to comment on that because the last time the people from CCRPC came, they said they were starting a study to update those wetland maps. That was part of their presentation. So
And, right, there's
if
federal.
they want to do it, I think I'd like to have them do it other than our having to take care of
Yeah.
it.
So, sorry.
Oh, I don't think there's anything in the town plan that would stand in the way of any updating of the maps.
I'm just curious from a little bit of personal experience, but I've been doing a lot of work with the state and based around agriculture, but with wetlands and as far as I can't find the wetland map in here for whatever reason. If anybody knows exactly what page it's on, but I see the floodplains, the 100-year floodplains, but the state of Vermont has, and maybe it's just the agency that I've been working with, but they have up-to-date maps that are like drawn daily as they go places, especially with the Agency of Agriculture. But I had some work done on my property on Osgood Hill and also over on Towers Road. And the mapping that they have now is like, I had printed out a bunch of stuff that I found on the internet, which they showed me their computer and tablets and stuff, and their mapping is 10 times bigger than the old stuff, but also frequently updated. So I don't know. And like I said, I tried to find the information too. I'm not sure where the lappage is with the people doing that kind of field work and the state updating the public record side of it, and then also us receiving that information. I don't know who really keeps that information, but in my personal experience, I have printed a bunch of maps that I could personally find. Maybe I'm not the best with a computer, don't get me wrong, but they have new imagery that like they are not shrinking wetlands, that's for sure.
And the wetlands are mapped on the state A&R maps, and those are available online. And our GIS coordinator does update our maps that we have locally based on state data. So we're syncing with what the state data is.
Okay.
Betsy, did you want to comment?
We did include the wetlands map in the one that we did for 171 for the planning commission for the wetlands. So there is one in there.
The forest block.
And we have the wetlands, there's a separate one for all the wetlands, that's in there.
Okay. And that's not from 2006.
No, that's from now.
Okay, that was I heard 2006, and I was brought back to the agricultural plan from '98, and I was like, they have.
Just did an update on wetlands.
Does anybody know what page? It's in here?
77.
77. Thank you.
That's the water resources map.
I was trying to find it in a hurry, but I couldn't.
It's bigger in the
click
other
on it.
version that you have.
Oh,
there.
77 right
I'm
here.
not sure it's It's not going to be
Oh.
77 there.
Right.
73. No. Yeah, 73. Yeah. The green on green is kind of hard to.
I can run that by Shannon.
I can see them, but I can't see them. Maybe I'll see this. Okay, I was just curious because I heard 2006, and I just wanted to make sure that I don't know how exactly to make that connection. But thank you for providing that update with the GIS coordinator, because
All right.
I knew there was more recent.
Any other comments about wetland maps or flood resiliency? So, Catherine, is there anything you've heard that we should update in there?
I don't think so.
Let's see, there was a question about, I think, Leah, you had brought up the possibility of having a fund that purchases land. We do have a conservation fund. It's not aimed toward necessarily purchasing land for parks, but it could be. I hadn't heard any, well, other than the Winooski Valley Park District, which is a collaboration with other communities to maintain parks along the river corridor. I haven't heard of any discussions about collaborating with neighbor communities about, I see Betsy's nodding her head, maybe I'm wrong.
Between Indian Brook and Colchester Pond, the
Right.
proximity of those and making those meet, that's something that we can talk about.
Well, on the map, there's a big conservation section.
You come close, sorry, yeah.
On the map, the conservation map, I'm not sure which one it is, there's a big section that was listed as conservation. It's not really accessible from the town of Essex without going to Jericho, but there is a lot of space there that could, potentially someday come on the market, who knows, but if you want to do some conservation, maybe you buy something that's on the Westford Essex line or something like that. That makes sense. But it would be good to look forward and identify some places that you might want to preserve for the future. It was just an idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think actually the forest block and habitat connector map does a good job of that too.
That's what I was thinking. But
Yeah.
there's,
Okay.
I mean, if there's an actual road, you could get to it. But anyways, I know there's a lot of people that like to mountain bike. There's a lot of people that like to hike, and so opening that up and preserving some of it might be helpful. Future. The city I was talking about in Colorado, of course, they have a lot more space. They buy areas outside of the city of Fort Collins, and there's some really remarkable pieces of property that they've preserved that way. And it's more, I think, for the future, because as the city gets bigger, it'll be nice to have those big hunks of place. And we probably can't do that here, but we could think about it.
And I know that there's a little more than a couple handfuls of properties that, greater than 50 acres, that have tax agreements with us where if they sell their property, we have right of first refusal for them. So there are some potential large properties that may be available if we want them, but then we have to have the money to pay for it. But
Right, I mean, it would be good to plan for it.
yeah, yeah. So then, I guess, hearing that or that discussion, is there anything that you think needs to be added to the town plan to allow us to do that sort of thing?
No, I don't think so.
You think that okay.
The language doesn't seem to prohibit, and I think the Act 171 forest block language is encouraging of that sort of thing.
Okay.
And also, I think some of the agricultural discussion is encouraging of that too.
Okay, all right. I'm just trying to look through my notes here to see if there's anything else that came up. Any other comments from board members or questions? Okay, and so what you're looking for now is a motion to potentially with a couple of edits.
Yep, with the edits, essentially you're wanting to send it on to the voters, but your next meeting you'll actually have the language that will be warning for town meeting, and so that's where, you know, again, sort of maybe more officially you'll be sending it on to the voters. But I think just an agreement that the town plan is at a place where you're ready to send it for the warning. Does that make sense?
Okay, so do we need to make a motion tonight, or?
I think you should make a motion to approve the town plan, and then you'll be approving the warning on the January
Warning. We'll be
29th.
warning
Does
it.
that work for you, Catherine, for your
Yeah, so
purposes?
it's I think approving it for the voters to approve, or
Okay. And we actually can't warn town meeting yet. It's too early to warn something for town meeting. So, if there's no more comments or questions from board members, does somebody have the motion? Tracy?
Move that the select board move the 2024 town plan for vote by Australian ballot on town meeting day, March 5th, 2024, with the minor changes discussed here this evening.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ethan. Any further discussion? Okay, and just to be very clear, those two changes, one are related to the childcare language, including the edit to reverse parks and recreation, and then the other was the change to the
AR district.
Description about removing the clause about the 3-acre lots.
I do have a comment really quickly. We did allow other members of the public to speak. Did Lorraine have a comment before we voted?
So, Lorraine, did you, everybody okay with it?
Is that okay?
We have a
It's not
motion.
related to vote, though, you can vote, it was just not speak to it, reference what it said.
Lorraine, go ahead and make your comment. And you're really hard to understand for some reason, but
Oh, okay, can you hear me now?
yeah.
It wasn't, my comment has nothing to do with your vote. I just wanted to clarify to Ethan about the wetlands mapping is very much hit or miss. Some of it's very accurate and up to date, and a lot of it is not. And my comment about the 2006 was related to the ETC work, when we had a consultant come in, and I had looked at the wetland maps because part of it was our land in the back that they were talking about in the Golden Triangle. And that mapping that he was using was from 2006 when we hired that consultant. And I asked the consultant about why we're planning a future thing when we haven't even mapped the wetlands back there yet and updated the state site. And he kind of blew off the comment. And I think it's really critical that we make sure those maps when we're developing areas are up to date with the state, or that any delineation that happens by private citizen, there's a way to coordinate that with the state to make sure it's updated. I got word today from one of the senators, that the state level, they were saying the municipalities might want to consider doing the mapping themselves, which of course would cost a lot of money. I'm not in favor of that. And it's interesting, Don remembered that about the county talking about doing that work, but I'm not hearing those rumblings at the state level. So it's just something to be concerned about when we're planning these big developments in the future town plan, that wetland maps are, and the delineations we're looking at, those concentrated areas are up to date. The wetland maps is changing pretty quickly. So just want to make sure everyone's aware of that. Thanks.
Lorraine. Okay, any other comments? Okay, all those in favor of approving moving the town plan to the voters, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Catherine, and we'll be likely we'll be discussing whether we want to warn it at the next meeting.
Next meeting. Thank you very much.
Great, thanks so much. Okay, moving on.
Andy, I'm sorry, I meant to say to Catherine, thank you for your hard work. It is much appreciated. Just want to acknowledge that. Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Okay, moving on to business item 6B, consider approval of memorandum of understanding for use of VT Vermont alert system.
We have Chief Hoig here with us, and largely it's just something that we're looking to move on to. It's a state system. It's a little bit of a change, so I asked the chief to be here just in case there are any questions about the system or how it works.
Good evening, folks. Can you hear me okay? Okay, perfect. Like the town manager was just saying, we're looking at joining the VT alert system and using that here in the town. And in order to do that, the state requires us to have approval from the local select board. So that's basically what we're doing tonight, is just looking to get your approval, so that way we can go ahead and get the MOU signed off. VT alert, as indicated in your memo, and in the other information that was sent along by Rick Gary, is just basically a notification system. If anyone is familiar with the 511 system, you may have signed up for that to get 511 alerts on your phone or by text. This is the same system. It's just a separate section of it that is used by the Vermont Department of Emergency Management. And it allows us to send out notifications to citizens when there's something going on, something that would be of concern, such as a weather event, or as included in the list that was sent to you all, a school closure, something like that could be done, but we would have to get access with EWSD, and that would be a separate thing. But just making notifications of road closures, if there was a significant event going on that we had going on, and as a law enforcement event or a fire or something like that, we could notify folks of that in an efficient manner and quick manner. So that way, they could stay away from it. So that's basically what we're looking for. And if anyone has any questions, I'd be glad to answer those.
I thought we already belonged, so that's how far behind I am.
We don't necessarily use the system. We started looking at this a couple of years ago, but we kind of stopped looking at it when the city was part of the town, or the merger was starting to happen. We stopped looking at it because the town had another internal system that we were looking at. But now that the city has separated, we're looking at a system that both entities can use. And when I say we, the police department would be able to use it for both city issues and the town, and everyone would gain the benefits of it.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Kendall, go ahead.
I'm a big supporter of Vermont Alert, especially for folks that have water leaks and issues like that. I'm just curious about how much staff time you feel it would take, and who will be the point person that will be putting out the alerts generally.
As far as staff time, it's not going to be a lot once we get trained. So the folks from emergency management have offered to do a special training for us to be able to do it. I've done the training once before. It doesn't take more than an hour to learn how to use the system. Once we got going, our main people that would use it that would be authorized would be myself, Lieutenant Kissinger, Rick Gary in the police department, Charlie Cole, the fire chief, Aaron Martin from Public Works, and I believe Rob Paluba is on that list initially. So we would want to keep the list fairly short, and possibly we would expand that down to our supervisors in the police department, our sergeants. So that way, if there was something going on the weekend where I wasn't actually working, we could actually get those alerts out.
I would just follow that up and say a big push should be made for all of the residents to be aware of it, because I think the towns that have gone to using it, once the residents realize it's available, you get a lot of people that sign on, because it's very, very handy.
That's absolutely true. We plan on, once we get up and trained, we plan on doing a public blast to try to get folks to join this and make sure that they're subscribed to the Vermont, or to the Essex Vermont part. Yep.
Any other board member questions or comments? Tracy?
And just for clarification, even though this would be, for lack of a better phrase, owned or coordinated between the two municipalities by the police department, this could be used for public health notifications, boil water notices, thinking of the recent water main issues, and
Yes.
so it's, yeah, just to clarify, it's not just for police events or public safety, it's also for public awareness.
Yep, that's absolutely true. And just to clarify, the city would have to have their own MOU, and they would have to establish their own folks who are authorized to use it. So I would assume they would give that to someone in their water department and also from Public Works as well. And then make us, as the police department, one of the authorized users of their system as well, I would think. So.
Thank you.
Kenny, you got another question?
Just kind of a follow-up. So the residents of the town of Essex will be able to get only town notifications if they so choose?
I believe that is the case. I don't want to 100% say that, but I believe that's the case, yes.
Okay.
Anybody else?
No, I was just gonna say, I have it on my phone already. I was gonna check, but I don't think that would be appropriate at this moment.
Okay.
I do as well.
Then I make the motion. Do we have to
got a
open it
public
up?
hand- We got a hand up in the public.
Sorry.
Lorraine, your hand, I see your hand is up. Did you have a comment, or was that a holdover from last comment?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, Lorraine, your
Andy,
hand is.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
Lor-
didn't hear the name.
Lorraine, your hand is up.
Yeah, I have a comment. I just, Ron, good to see you.
Hi, Lorraine.
You're looking good. I don't know.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We had this in New Jersey when I lived there over 12 years ago. I've been here for about 10, 12 years ago. Loved it. It was fantastic. And we had a police alert come because there was a gentleman running around with a gun in our zone. And it was great because they told us shelter in place. So I'm assuming that's also appropriate. I loved it. And I hope that we do get the word out if we do go ahead with it. And I think that's a great question from Kendall regarding whether it could be separated out, because I don't know in terms of municipal codes, are they using a municipal code or are they using a zip code to be able to disaggregate who gets what, you know?
I don't know. I suspect, as with everything else that we've done in the last year, we're going to have to be careful in the setup to make sure that we're getting it right. And we may have some hiccups at first, but we'll get it separated out.
Great. Thank you for answering those questions.
You bet.
All right, thanks, Lorraine. Any other public comments or questions? Okay, now Don, go ahead.
I make the motion that the Essex Town Select Board approve the use of the Vermont Alert System for the town of Essex, and that the chair of the Select Board sign the attached MOU to start forward with setup process. Anyway, so go ahead and set it up.
Thank you, Don. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Tracy. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay, motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you very much.
Moving on to the next business item, discussion about new municipal facilities and other site development at 80 and 90 Upper Main Street.
Right.
Greg.
So as you're aware, the town now owns 80 and 90 Upper Main Street. It was a long process to get there. We can start talking now about what to do with it and how to do that. Start engaging the public and what they'd like to see up there. Obviously, municipal facilities are high on that list, but there's also going to be a lot of other opportunities up there as well, we think. Your packet includes a lot of history of how we got to this point. That's based on some of the comments we've heard from the public about people just kind of wondering how we got to here, how the town acquired the land, how the money was used and stuff like that. So happy to answer questions or take comments on that. But really the point of tonight is to try to start to talk about and have a public dialogue about what's next. That's a very high overview. Catherine's going to be working on this quite a bit. So she's put together a rough outline and timeline of some of the steps that we intend to take, but happy to take feedback and answer questions and, again, start the dialogue about where we're going and what to do with the property.
And that timeline is in your packet as well, with all that material.
Okay, any Comments or questions for board members? Kendall?
I have a question. Since the town owns the property now, it is part of the town. Is there any access to the property for the residents currently?
That's a good question.
Because it's a great area. It's a part of the town. You could cross-country ski there, walk your dog. I mean, I expect that you probably want to set up some parameters where it is or where you would access it, but it is part of the town network, so.
Yeah, we've not given it much thought. It's a good question. I think right off the top of my head, questions would be how to access it, where it's parking. We don't have any trail set systems or networks on there, so it would be,
Right,
if people are on there, it'd be bushwhacking type of thing.
right.
So yeah, let us
I
get
just
this-
wanted
let us
to
get some
bring
thought to
that
that.
up because it is part of the town network now, and I mean, there are town properties that don't have public access,
Right.
and you can run into issues if you don't get ahead of the curve, so to speak, so. I thought of that when I came past it tonight, and here's this big open field in the middle that's now part of the town, so. I thought I would ask the question.
No, good question. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Kendall. Any other board member questions, comments? Ethan, you want
No, everybody can go before me.
I don't have anything.
You good? You have something?
Tracy, you got that?
I'm
You
good.
good?
I'm just really interested in hearing from the public on what
Yeah.
they envision. I know what I envision, but I would like to hear from the public on how they feel. I could talk all day about
Yeah,
what I'd like to
me
see.
too. I just have one quick comment, and that was just gonna be for everybody to see that in the MOU that the town executed with the dealers that we're giving them the ability to purchase 110 EUs out of the reserve sewer capacity. So that should be highlighted, especially talking about the sewer core tonight. So.
All right, any other board comments or questions? I think I saw a hand up in the back of the room. Ken, come on up.
Ken Signorello, town resident. So two things I'll say about it at this point. It's so early. A lot of different uses I think that we're all planning to put there. Everything from a fire station to a library to a community center, all sorts of things. May not be able to do it all at once, obviously, so I just suggest that we think about priorities and building slowly, but with a master plan. Short term. Kendall's point is a well-taken one, and here's an opportunity to have it generate some money day one, or anytime this next growing season at the very least. Highly in demand, community gardens. Highly in demand. They're all used up, the ones that we've had in the city's doing, and I'm quite sure that we'd have no trouble selling out all the community gardens we could possibly produce. They can be transient, they can be moved from location to location as the plans develop. Just need to put a little bit of a parking lot and have Parks and Recreation get on it, and I think that you can start generating some money. Put it into our rainy day, not a rainy day fund. Put it into our savings account for building what goes there next. Those are just two things that come to mind for me. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Ken. Lorraine Zalum.
Dog park. To me, I think community minded. I lived in Milton for a while. They had a very fabulous community center that handled the senior center basically, and they did childcare in there. It functioned very well. I hope that we look at other communities and what they're doing. Also, I've noted that the dying out of our churches on the East Coast in New England, we're one of the least religious states in the Union. And one of the things that the churches did certainly for communities is create community, resiliency, and networking, which also help keep services down when we can get to know our neighbors. We don't have great ways to do that anymore. My parents grew up Catholic and went to Y dances as teens. We don't have places like that for teens and for adults to kind of commune. So hopefully we'll understand and research what a community center does in terms of keeping community services down and costs down. I think it's very important in this day and age of churches dying out, especially. I think certainly the community gardens is fabulous. We love orchards in there, things that we could share. Also ways to hopefully bring in revenue as we go into the future in terms of rec programs and things like that. So there's hopefully there'll be rec opportunities there as well. And certainly we know we need a new firehouse and, you know, all the other things that we need in terms of the campus and to be efficient. So hopefully that's a few ideas that'll be helpful. And also in the future, if we do ever redo the pool, the Sandhill pool, I hope that we consider adding a conference room onto the pool as well for revenue bearing for children's parties and things like that. There's certainly ways that we could consider revenue as we build and keep that in mind so that some of this could be self-supporting and keep the taxes down. Thanks.
Thanks, Lorraine. Any other comments from the public? I don't see any hands. So, Catherine, what are the next steps?
I am working on an RFP to send out to inquire for consultants for the work, the planning work, which is what's, you know, a big part of what the memo that or the timeline. So that should be going out in the next couple weeks. Once we get some responses, we'll hire the consultant and begin the work. You know, obviously, public engagement is really high as a priority in that process. So we'll start that right near the beginning. We'll start reaching out to the public and talking and dreaming and planning.
Do you have a date for expectations for beginning that public engagement, or is it too early to say?
Yeah, I was, thinking depending on when the RFP goes out, I would say by April we'd be starting the process.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments or questions? Ethan, go ahead.
Shouldn't we get some sort of consensus from the public before we go and hire a firm and start planning all these buildings that we don't even know that the community wants to build?
So what's the consultant going to be doing?
Well, it's site planning for the whole site. So thinking about what the uses would be, what the layout would be, if there would need to be any potential zoning changes, which were already suggested by the ETC next plan. So I think it'd be in line with that. I think also thinking through more specifically about the town facilities and conceptual plans for what that could look like. Talk about phasing or building it all at one time. Part of the uses would include potentially paths around the wetlands that are in the back. All of that.
Greg. Yeah, Ethan, all of that, what Catherine said, I think that this is kind of, the consultants are going to help with that process. So we've done a little bit of work, which we can start to spend some more time on and dig into a little bit deeper about what these facilities might look like, what the town needs are, how much space that's going to take, and sort of be able to go into this process with, okay, the town is going to plan to need 8, 10, 12 acres for municipal facilities. And then the consultant and the planning process with the public can start to weigh in with, okay, where should that be on the site? What are the uses should be on the site? How does that whole site look with those municipal facilities put on it as part of where that we're going to get that input from the public?
Is there like a rough cost that we're this consulting?
No,
Not at this point.
not yet.
I mean, my only concern is, it was brought up earlier, was we don't believe. I shouldn't say we. Okay, let me restart. There was comments about the struggles to transition to a DRB, and there was also suggestions of hiring a consultant. So my only concern is how much money is this going to cost, and the interference that's going to have with the opposite. Because I understand a certain dollar figure amount doesn't have to be approved by the select board, but if we have two of those $1,000 under the threshold, that's a lot of money to be in consulting. So I just didn't know if this is going to be something that you come to the select board and say, hey, we want $150,000, you know, and this is our goal of this, not designing buildings, but public outreach, and maybe we can do that for under, I don't know, I don't see a plan of how we plan on moving forward.
Sure. Try to gather my thoughts before I respond, because there's a lot in there. As far, you brought up the DRB piece, and yes, that is, the workload and capacity is a big issue right now. And I think we haven't done much with the DRB to this point because we've had zoning changes, because we've had the town plan. Catherine and ComDev and the Planning Commission have been busy with those things. Now we likely have a deadline, assuming the charter changes get approved to January 1st, 2025. We're planning on that. We expect that. That also comes at a time when Catherine and the Planning Commission and Community Development Department are going to be working on Upper Main Street. They're going to be working on the zoning changes recommended by ETC Next. There is a lot in there. I think that's something for the select board to consider, for staff to consider, for me to consider as I delegate, for the public to consider. Where are those priorities? To some extent, especially if the charter change gets approved, that's law. We're going to have to be
Right, and
doing
it was
the
voted on.
transition. You know, the idea of a consultant for the DRB, I think it warrants some more consideration. Catherine and I have very briefly talked about this. One thing that jumps to mind is the Regional Planning Commission. They're going to be pretty affordable. They know that transition. They know the roles and responsibilities as well as anybody. I think we want to do it right. We've heard and seen that Essex Junction has made a transition pretty quickly. They have. I don't think it's been 100% smooth without hurdles. There's been a learning curve. There's been changes. We can make a transition and put a DRB into place. I'd like to see it transition so that it's up and running and ready to go. And same thing with the Planning Commission, the new form of that. So I think, doesn't quite answer your question about cost, but I think that's probably not a huge expense if I had to guess. You know, a couple tens of thousands of dollars tops would be my guess, and I'm really ballparking that.
For the municipal, or for the site planning, you mean?
No, I'm talking about if we were to hire a consultant for a DRB transition.
Yeah, I don't think we need.
And I'm not sure we need one really, yeah.
Yeah, honestly, I think the idea of having the Regional Planning Commission help and reaching out to other towns to see how they done it, especially Essex Junction. I've worked in towns that have a DRB, so I'm pretty familiar with it. I don't think it's rocket science.
Right. I'm glad to hear that because I've heard the opposite for 2 years.
Yeah.
So
You had a
I'm
DRB
glad to
in
hear
your-
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's,
in Milton.
I know it's not gonna be easy. It's not gonna be flipping the
No, I
switch.
just don't want to overwhelm.
I don't think
with
it's,
this.
I don't think it's gonna be, and to some extent, and that's back to the prioritization. I think we can kind of do them concurrently, but a large part of Catherine's workload and the Planning Commission and the Zoning Board's workload is going to be the DRB for the next year.
Right.
And so that means there's gonna be less time on some of this stuff. So that's also part of why you hire a consultant to help and take the lead on a lot of that planning piece. Just to throw some markers out there, the ETC Next plan, which was a much bigger process, a much bigger scope, much bigger land mass, all different types of zoning recommendations, changes, density, design. That was, I think, about $100,000. So it's before Catherine's time. I kind of was involved at the start of it, and then less so as it went on. But I want to say that was about $100,000, and that was a multi-year process. The Saxon Hill visioning process, which was a much smaller scope, or focused on a still large but more comprehensive, cohesive parcel, smaller property. I was not involved with that as much. Off the top of my head, and this was before Catherine's time, I want to say it was in like the $20,000 range. Don't hold me to that, but that low tens of thousands, which again is still money. But we have money in the budget. There's money in the planning budget each year for zoning. There's money in the planning reserve fund. We still have some ARPA money left over, which is what we've been applying towards this property. So I think the money's there. It will cost something. I don't think it's going to be ridiculous amount of money, but to put a number on it right now, I don't know, low tens, 10, 20, 30.
And that's just for public outreach.
It's the whole
No, that's
scope of the
planning.
process.
Well, that's where I take the
and to come up with what is a scope of work, what's a master plan. Catherine can speak more to the RFQ, but it's to come up with a plan for that property with a lot of public input.
I mean, yeah.
I think we'd also be looking at potential funding sources for development, for infrastructure. Yeah, really looking to what we would see as everything we need to move it to the next phase for development.
I had it pulled up earlier, but when I turned my computer back on, it must have died because all my links were gone. But nobody has to agree with me. That's perfectly fine. That's what we're here for. But in our year scope of work that we set up, nowhere in there was designing a new municipal center. There was purchasing, and any future development of a municipal center was very low priority. So I'm just confused as to when this became a high priority item.
My computer's died on me too, and I don't have it. in
I
front of me, but
had it.
I was
but
looking
I would
at
have
it.
to scroll back to.
I was looking at it not too long ago, and I forget the exact words, but it was either high or medium high priority to
Land
continue-
acquisition.
land acquisition and site planning and facilities planning and all that.
Not all in one line.
I'll double check, but I'll get it.
Okay.
I
'Cause I had
don't
it.
have it in front of me, but I'll track.
I was
it
just
down.
curious, and that's another conversation for
Mm-hmm.
if like, everybody else is good, but I think there's a lot of public outreach that needs to be done before we say.
Well, that's what the intent of the consultant.
Right,
is
but
to
but
collect that.
with these pictures of a library that's twice the size of the town hall, I mean, I think that's a much larger discussion of having somebody design those buildings than asking the community what they want. That's two different things. That's two totally different things. Right? I got two drawings here, of which doesn't show the road actually going where the road's gonna go.
These are the concept plans that are in the packet?
Yeah.
Yeah, very much concept. That's.
Well, I understand, but that's your concept of what you're gonna have somebody researching, right?
No, they're gonna bring their thing to us.
So what's this? Just for fun?
Just
This
Just
conversation
an old
starter.
proposal.
That was used, I think, in a big part to just give an idea to V-Trans, what we were thinking could be on the site. It wasn't really showing the exact layout, but we were trying to show where the access points would be, where roads would be, the level of development that we could see on the site.
Okay.
Tracy, do you have a comment?
I just wanted to sort of say the same thing, but clarify what the RFP process actually is. It's like those maps and the site conceptual, like totally conceptual. But the RFP is you essentially tell the vendor community, if you will, this is what we're envisioning, this is what we need, these are our requirements as far as public outreach, conceptual drawings, to then put a price to that. We get to look at those plans, and by we, I mean the town as a whole, get to look at those, select which one we want to go with. That puts a price to it. You don't want to put a price on it before RFP, because then you're going to get proposals that come in at that cost. If the vendor community knows what you've budgeted. But then at that point, we choose a proposal that's going to meet the needs that we've specified for public outreach, to identify what, where, how, all of those things. So this is just the very first step in the process in order to come back with ideas, costs, to start that ball rolling down the. That's kind of a really bad way to put it, but to start that entire process.
Just to get into some technical and more logistical stuff too, the purchasing policy, the town-approved purchasing policy, we don't have to go out to bid unless it's something that's expecting to be $40,000 or more. This is, we're supposed to, we're in the area that we're expecting this, roughly expecting this to cost. It's definitely going to be in the, I think, $10,000 or $5,000. Anything above that, you're supposed to solicit quotes. When we have a big project like this, it's very public-facing. It's more than just your standard town operations. We often will do it, whether it's requests for proposals or a request for qualifications, but it's a way to get it out there, to notify the vendors in the area, to get some feedback. Proposals is more, you do have kind of a ballpark number. You're putting it out there, and you hope that people come back within that budget. request for qualifications is a little bit more open-ended as far as cost, but you can then choose somebody who doesn't just necessarily come in with a lower price, but somebody who's skilled and qualified enough to do the work. So that's another conversation we can have, whether it's an RFQ or an RFP. But that's how we get, I just want to put it out there of, it might still come in under that $40,000 threshold, in which case the manager, I have authority to assign that. If it comes in above 40,000, it comes back to the select board. I just want to put that out there now, just depending on what comes back.
All right, Kendall, you got a question, comment?
I would just note that this could be a very exciting project for both the consultant and the town because it's a blank slate. And by bringing in a consultant like that, especially one that involves robust public engagement, you're apt to end up with a product in the end that is way better than everybody envisions to start with. So I would support a consultant.
All right, thanks. Okay, so you're not looking for any kind of decisions, it's just a discussion to say where we are. Make sure we allow the public opportunity to comment on it and get all of the materials are out there. There's what, 411 pages of content in the packet on this topic. Folks want to see all the detail that went behind the decision, and so. All right, let's move on to the next business item, which is discussion about FY 2025 budget adjustments for public hearing on January 29th. So it's my understanding that we've got new information about a couple of line items.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Earlier at the previous meeting, you warned a budget totaling $16,106,421. In looking at the budget overall and knowing that we have some county tax information to reconsider, we've made an adjustment. We're proposing an adjustment here of $12,576 to the line item for the county tax. And then there's also related health and human service grants to end up matching the total for that 1% match that's necessary for the overall budget. That would be $626. Really, at this point, it's just to inform the board, since you've already warned that number previously. So those are the two items noted here.
So not looking for action tonight, just wanted to make you aware of it. We'll present this again at the public hearing on the 29th. Decision point then will be, do you stick with the number that was warned for the public hearing? In which case we have more information now than we did a couple weeks ago. Our staff recommendation would be, if you want to keep that number, we can delay the start date of the admin assistant and or trails coordinator. If you wanted to wrap this in and keep the start dates of July 1st, the budget number would go up a little bit. So just wanted to give you a heads up, the public a heads up, but we do have some options and decisions after the 29th.
All right, and the county meets for their final budget session. I can't remember if it's on the 20th or the 27th. It's on a Saturday, but it will be before the 29th, so we should have a final number before our next meeting. So the county number may still move just a little bit more. So I hope we can have that discussion.
Up or down?
I have no idea. I have no idea. What we were given was last year they didn't recognize that the Essex Junction had separated, so they just sent one number, and we said, hey, wait a minute, and we, by separate agreement with the city, we paid 59%, they paid 41%, so the total got paid, but we had to negotiate ourselves what the difference was. And this year, when they put out their preliminary budget, they did separate it, but they gave it half to each of us. And what happens is they get a CLA number, I think, from the state at the beginning of January, which then allows them to set the number based on grand list. And so we think it might be around 59% of the total of those two numbers, but it may be slightly different. So we'll see. All right, so no action. Any other questions or comments on any of that? And it's a discussion we can have after the public hearing about whether to adjust up or down, or keep the number the same or adjust it upward. So, Ethan, do you have any comments or questions around this? Okay. All right, so let's move on to the next one, which is consider approval adjustments to fiscal year 2023 fund balance assignments. So who's got Stan again?
Yeah, it's me. Yeah. So in kind of wrapping up the audit process, in discussion with the auditors last week, they kind of informed me that I had made a mistake in terms of the fund balance assignments that we had discussed previously at other meetings. So I had overstated by $600,000, and there's another $20,000 of unearned grant revenue that affected the capital project balance or the overall fund balance. That affects the overall fund balance available for assignment. So what I've done here is updated this memo to reconsider the elimination of some of the capital items that were approved on previously, and getting back in line with the audit draft, which we're reviewing a final copy of that came in on Friday afternoon. I don't know if you need me to go through each of the steps of it, but we were looking to eliminate items for fire department vehicles, public works major equipment, and the municipal complex that had previously been approved, and also reducing the road reconstruction allotment from $200,000 to $50,894. Looking to keep the salt shed piece, since that's a near-term pending project, at $100,000. So the overall effect is to the capital projects section of this, the capital transfers section of this memo, reducing that down to $150,894 total. And in the third page of the memo, it reflects all of the totals as kind of previously elaborated on.
Okay, any questions or comments?
You know I have a lot of comments. You're pulling almost $400,000 right out of the public works budget. Then the main reason that we looked at this and I approved the budget was that we're going to finally start catching up, or at least keeping even with our capital needs. Staff comes to us and says they need a number of things, and generally we agree with what the staff requests, administrative assistant or such. When staff comes to us with the request and provides all of this information about how important the capital fund is and where it's looking to go way down, and staff presents it, I don't understand why we don't approve that as well. It's very clear. And I just, $600,000, I know it was a mistake missing that, but we could make that up. The current budget is subsidized by a significant amount of fund balance and interest money with new things. We've got to do something about our capital. We got to fund it. Will there be an opportunity to talk about putting an increase to the capital tax? I know that we tabled that because we were going to put a bunch of capital into the budget.
So at our next meeting, we'll be warning what's going to be voted on at a town meeting. I guess that would be the time that
would be the time
discussion could be had. You could have discussion about it. We could certainly have discussion of, well, we didn't warn that we were going to discuss potential change to the capital tax. So, but we could do that, and then we would need, we'd have to warn. We don't have to have a public hearing about capital tax, do we? Or do we?
I'm trying to remember what we did last year. Let us do some research. I think we're okay to just, if you want to have the discussion on the 29th, have that discussion before you finalize the town meeting warning. If we do need to do a public hearing or warn a public hearing, we'd have to have a special meeting. So let us do some research into that and track it down.
Is there anybody else who'd want to have a discussion about, I guess, before we go down the path of potentially having a special meeting, do we want to consider increasing the capital tax because of this error uncovered by our audit? I mean, it's money we don't have, right? And so I guess kind of what you're suggesting is that we could either increase the budget by having additional capital transfers, or we could ask for a larger capital tax
Yes, and there is actually a third option that I would suggest, is that, I asked about articles, is that you could come up with some articles to ask the residents, during town meetings, something like, shall the town fund public works to make sure all roads and sidewalks are maintained in winter? I had some other ones. Should the town establish a policy that puts 2% of the budget or some X number into capital funds every year, like we do with the money that we give to charities and such? That's 1% of the budget, and we could ask them if they'd like to put 2% of the budget every year towards capital or some number like that. I also would like to talk about, shall the town establish a local option tax, such revenue to be put directly towards capital expenses? Just something, ask the voters, so that it doesn't always just kind of stew right here in the board, because I know we're short on funds. I mean, 600,000 isn't something you can just snap your fingers and come up with. It's a percentage increase to the budget, so those would be the three options that I would ask to talk about.
Ethan?
I have a fourth option. Via our policy that says we can keep no more than 15% of the budget in fund balance, I would suggest that we spend the money that is currently in our fund balance to fund, as it was priorly proposed, for 200,000 to the fire department, 170,983 for major public works equipment, and the 200,000 for road reconstruction.
So that would deplete our emergency funds by a third.
By a third?
Yep.
3.3 million, that's a third, that's $300,000.
No, the 15% is not 3.3 million.
The current unassigned would be 2.31.
2.3 million. So you'd be
So if you
300,000.
take, okay, I was using the 600,000 number, so you're using a different number.
Yeah, I'm just saying that.
So the way I look at that is that if an emergency arises and the fire department needs a new truck, then we use them. Then we use our emergency funds. I would not take emergency funds and put them and transfer them to capital and give us a potential.
They do need a new truck. They're trying to buy one. We're taking the money away from them.
I think we have
Fairly
a
stated,
we have a
yeah.
car 10, which is a Tahoe. We're about to
Yeah.
about to bid for that. We have the money for that, and I think the next big purchase in
20.
fire is not until 2029.
Fiscal year 29 is the next large engine purchase.
So the 24 listed in here, there's money for that on. I'm gonna go back to the other page. I just saw. Hang on a second. I mean, $300,000 isn't gonna set the town at a substantial disadvantage when we're gonna have that money back come the end of the year.
How are we gonna have the money back at the end of the year?
When we get our fund balance next year.
You can't count on that. 'Cause
Oh, we can't count on it except for historically the last 12 years.
yes, but there's a significantly different situation right now where we have an almost full roster of police officers, and we have to share any fund balance generated by our major historic source of fund balance
Yeah.
with the city. And so we cannot count on large fund balances going forward. We have no idea where it's going to end up this year. So we can't assume that we're going to underspend.
And we have to have $2.3 million sitting in the bank.
We have to have no more than 15% of the
Correct.
operating budget. Am I saying that
Correct.
correctly?
Yeah, of the current year's operating budget, yes.
So with a lean budget and funding of the police department, sharing any surplus that's left over from the police portion of the budget, it's unlikely that we would have the amount of fund balance that we historically have coming back at the end of the fiscal year.
Right. And we're gonna, based on what was presented at the last select board meeting, we will spend $40,000 on one piece of equipment in the year 24. 25.
Money that we have already. that we already have?
We're gonna spend that money. Not money that we have. It's money that's in the budget for a wide variety of things. Specifically, I'm talking about Public Works. But you spent it last year on the same piece of equipment that's only getting older. You're guaranteed to spend that money again.
Okay,
Take the money out all you want, but you're putting yourself at a disadvantage, and you will lose that money, and that equipment will not get replaced, and you're going to sit on $2.3 million.
Are they going to replace that piece of equipment if we make this decision differently? I don't
If they don't have any money, they're not going to replace any equipment, right?
So, I don't know how to. So, we're talking about whether to adjust this fund balance, and I have
That's what I'm
no
talking
information about the specific vehicle that you're talking about.
I got the Public Works Director to give us information on it in the last meeting. There was about 25 pages provided. Thank you, Aaron, for all of your hard work.
You're talking
And everybody
about
blinked their eyes
$40,000,
and thought it was just another day.
It was the repairs of a vehicle that will need to be replaced. Is that what you're saying?
That needs to be replaced.
Okay.
And not just
And
that
that's
one
what you're
vehicle.
saying.
It went more into the trucks that were on a year plan that, you have substantial maintenance going into trucks of over $10,000 on individual
you've
vehicles.
made this point many times.
Okay, can I finish speaking, please?
Mm-hmm.
And we are taking all of the money away from Public Works major equipment, which is $170,000.
All of the money that we assigned at the
Yep.
last meeting,
Correct.
right? We're not taking money away from them. We're removing money that was assigned that they don't yet have in their pocket. So we don't have that money. That money doesn't exist. We could, as you say, but I don't recommend it. If there's an emergency and they need to replace that vehicle, they should come. The Public Works should come to the Select Board and say, we would like to dip into the emergency funds to replace this vehicle, and we would likely approve it.
But
That's the discussion isn't about this one specific vehicle. It's about
I'm not. I'm
the
talking
purpose,
about
so-
funding the Public Works, and you keep reverting back to that. I was just explaining why when I was asked the question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments from anyone?
I would just note that taking money out of your emergency fund to fund that is still a Band-Aid of the problem, is that
Exactly.
you don't have enough money to do what's required. And I mean, the reason they're spending $40,000 on that piece of equipment is because Aaron doesn't have it in his capital with the money to replace the equipment on an 8-year schedule or so. And that's what we're trying to get to. So I would still stick with the original 3 versus using the emergency fund.
Don, you got any comments? You comfortable with the recommendation? or do you-
Thinking. I am.
So, is the road reconstruction more important than the equipment? Because how are we going to fix the roads without the equipment?
They're all costs, and it's dollars. The road reconstruction, it's something we try to keep up with. Same with the vehicle equipment. We have the approved vehicle replacement schedule. I think to Andy's point, if we reach the point where we think we need to deviate from that schedule and come to you and say that we're putting more money than we think we should into a piece of equipment, then we'll bring that and come up with a conversation and make recommendations of how to fund that, whether it's from fund balance, the emergency fund balance, taking out of road reconstruction, holding off on that for a year. I think it's all stuff we weigh.
There's also an undesignated capital bucket
Right.
that it could come from
Right.
as well. And so it has happened many times in my tenure on the Select Board that the various departments have come and said, hey, this is something that we need to replace now ahead of schedule, and we've never denied it, so.
Happened recently with the fire department.
Mhm.
For,
Mhm.
what was it, 12? Car 12?
I think so.
I mean, ultimately, we have a lot of discussion about it, but maybe if you ask the residents in some form, I mean, if they say, no, we don't want to fund it, we like the way it is working now, and they don't approve it, that's one thing. But logically, capital is your biggest bang for your buck. We are functioning now on the backs of the people that came before us on the board that did an excellent job of putting Essex in this position where we have a fund balance and we have a robust capital program that is almost there. I just think we need to take that step and finish it.
Yeah, I fully recognize that looking forward, we were likely unfunded for capital, and that we do need to revisit the question. We did have this discussion a year ago, and the discussion was to wait until after reassessment. We can reconsider that decision. We're not bound by any prior decisions that we've made. But we're still in that same position, and unfortunately, right, a year from now, we'll still be in that position because we still won't have the new grand list. So yeah, it's a challenging spot to be in.
Yeah.
And this particular issue is related to this $600,000 error, which is an unfortunate error. And we, at our last meeting, assigned $600,000 more of fund balance than we had. So this is an adjustment to what we did in our last meeting. And suggestions to take that money from other places isn't a fund balance discussion, it's a capital discussion, capital plan or other. So the question before us is whether or not to accept this recommendation for a modified fund balance assignment, given the reality of the amount of funds we have to assign. You know, we could argue to shuffle the numbers around more, but
What's the direct impact going to be on the town if we approve it?
continued uncertainty about the future of the capital plan, yeah. But if we don't change what we've approved, we've essentially allocated funds we don't have, so.
We have the funds, though.
I think Andy phrased it well. It's a fund balance discussion. We have $150,000 roughly of excess fund balance. How do you want to use that? And apologize for putting you in this situation and the mistake that we made in the oversight, and that is on us. We're learning from it. It's not going to happen again. But I think for tonight, forget 3 weeks ago. The question for tonight is you have about $150,000 of fund balance to assign. We've made a recommendation. Do you support that recommendation, or would you like to assign it elsewhere? And I think that's the question before you tonight.
So I would say that I support the fund balance allocation as the staff has presented it. And I would just ask that at some point we have a discussion about the 600,000 capital that's not funded at a future meeting.
Okay. Okay.
I can accept that.
Okay. Any other board member comments or questions? Tracy.
Silver lining. I'm glad that our controls are working in such that we've found the mistake, and by we, I mean staff, and that we did so before we had warned the budget for the ballot and before we had an approved budget that was $600,000 short. So just a little silver lining there.
Okay, any comments or questions from the public? I'm not seeing any hands. Would someone like to make a motion?
I will make a motion that the select board assign the fund balance as follows: $50,894 to road reconstruction and $100,000 for new salt shed, for a total of $150,894,000 capital transfer from fund balance.
We have a second.
Nobody's jumping ahead.
I thought Kendall was supporting it, so.
I'll second that.
Okay, thanks, Kendall. So is that does that adequately address what we need?
I think so.
Yes, yeah, that encompasses all of the changes within it, yes.
Okay, so this is, so what we've defined are changes relative to what we assigned last time, because there's also other assignments that we made last time.
Yeah, there's other same assignments made last time. None of those have changed. This is only taking that 600,000, applying it to fiscal year 24, the current year property taxes, and then reducing the capital transfers as elaborated on in this memo.
Okay, so, so the ones that were referenced in the motion is the total for the capital transfers. All the rest of the assignments stay the same.
Correct, yes.
So we're okay with the way the motion was worded to do that, okay. Just want to make sure we're not suddenly deleting a bunch of other assignments that we've already made as well. Okay. All right, any other discussion of the board? Okay, all those in favor of approving the fund balance assignments, modified fund balance assignments, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Okay, motion passes 4-1. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Greg. Marguerite. Okay, now moving on to the next item, which is the fact that we just changed those capital allocations also impacts the capital plan that we had previously approved. And so because we've removed those items from the fund balance, those transfers will not happen into the capital plan as it was previously approved. So making the adjustments there, we also need to consider making those same changes in the capital plan. Any comments or questions? Because all of those previous numbers were
wrong. Okay.
Or we've just changed them. But since the capital plan is a separate document, it needs to be approved separately.
I have a question for
Ethan, go
Dan.
ahead.
So I'm just curious. I know, as it sits right now, before this is approved, right now the Public Works major equipment it's negative $71,215. So I see the $40,000 additions, capital tax budgeted, and then I see the $200,000. Both of those are still correct.
Yes, so so the 200,000 is within the operating transfers within our fiscal year
Right.
25 budget, which, we've spoken about briefly
Yep.
before, yes. Yeah. And that 40,000 piece is the piece that we've allocated based on the anticipated capital tax that we would collect at the current 3-cent rate
Okay.
for fiscal 25, yeah.
I'm just gonna have a hard time wrapping my head around it, but that $200,000 is coming from the overall.
So it's part of the $470,000 piece that we have continued to have in our operating budget as transfers to the capital projects. Yeah.
So it's coming from the general fund
Yes.
budget, yeah.
Right. Right. And that is. I'm just trying to figure out how the 105,000 total comes about.
So within that line item, you've identified the $71,000 negative
Negative.
balance
Yeah.
anticipated to conclude fiscal 24. The two revenue items total 240,000, and then there's an anticipated or an estimated spend of 273,816 in the second to last column. So the net activity at fiscal year 25 is negative 33,816. So adding that to the 71,215 turns into that $105,000 that you're seeing at the projection as of the end of fiscal 25 in that category.
Catch that, Kendall? Negative $105,031 as soon as we approve this.
Well, I mean, we need to fund more. We need more.
Any other board member comments? Any comments from the public?
No public comment.
Okay. Someone want to make a motion?
If I may, if you make a
Yeah,
motion,
go
we
ahead.
haven't warned the public hearing yet for capital. We're getting ready to do that. So if you could, just, if you make a motion and to approve the amended capital plan, also ask staff to rewarn the capital hearing for January 29th. The updated information.
Okay.
Thank you.
Says this was just for recommendation only. I wasn't looking for a motion. Or am I looking at the wrong part? Sorry, guys.
Tracy?
I move that the select board approve the capital budget amendments in conjunction with the fund balance assignment changes and warn a public hearing on that topic. Does that work?
Thank you, Tracy. Do we have a second? I'll second that. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving the amended capital plan and warning the public hearing, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Aye.
Okay, I think I heard 3-2. Tracy, did you vote in favor? Okay.
Aye.
So, motion passes 3-2. All right, thank you. Next item, I'm going to hand over to Tracy to.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Dan. Yeah,
I'm sorry
Thanks,
for
Dan.
creating this mess too. I know Greg's taking it for me, but that's my fault, and I apologize to all of you for that.
Thanks.
Thank
Yeah,
you for
understood.
owning it and the prompt attention to it.
I'm going to hand the gavel to you, Tracy.
Accepted. Are you gonna stay here?
You want me to move over
Do
there?
we make you go to the?
Can we
They're
just
gonna,
make-
they're
mean,
gonna
it's a-
grill you. They have some tough interview
That's
questions.
right.
It's a fair question. It's a fair question. So yeah, at our last meeting, Hubie Norton was in front of us for appointment as the Essex representative to the Chittenden County Communications Union District. Warned on that agenda was not warned on that agenda was the alternate position. Our own Andy Watts has been serving as the alternate and has agreed to continue, but we felt it was pertinent to bring him in front of us as this is an appointed position for an interview and a conversation. So at this point, I'll open it up to board member questions to Mr. Watts.
I'm just curious for alternates, you don't have to advertise like you do for the commissioners, right? It's pretty much just.
Go ahead. I shouldn't answer.
We
You
have,
go over there and behave.
it's sort of an in-between area, such as I'm the alternate to the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission Board, but I was appointed before the new process. You'll remember when Hubie was here, since there was a discrepancy in the timeline for their operating procedures and our appointment, we chose to appoint Mr. Norton without going back out for a full advertisement for that position. So it's my own interpretation that this would follow suit along with that, and then for the next term, we would do an advertisement as usual.
Okay.
That's my interpretation, but obviously up for
No,
board discussion at a future date.
That answers my question. Thank you.
Question?
Why do you want the job?
Why?
Why do you want the job?
Oh.
Very simple. I mean,
Yeah. That's a good question.
Tell told you they were gonna grill
Yeah,
you.
it's my last job I had at Global Foundries was with fiber optics, so it's something that I have some knowledge of, at least the signal processing end of it. Very interested to learn about the transport, I guess is the right word to say, of the signals from here to there, and getting all the connections together. The other thing is somebody's got to do it. I was actually I was the alternate where you were.
That's right. I was doing it, and you were out.
Yeah, and so there were a number of meetings that I did attend, and
yeah, when I was on maternity leave.
It was interesting to get the new entity off the ground and get it rolling. Like to see it continue on to see what it can do.
Thank you.
Ethan, questions? Kendall, any questions for Andy?
Well, no, I would just note that my vote will reflect the process and not the person, and I should have said that when I did the vote for Mr. Norton as well. So.
You answered the questions I had around experience on the committee and attended meetings and your interest in any communications knowledge background. So. Is the intent of the board to make a motion at this point or enter into executive session absent Mr. Watts?
I intend to make a
have
motion.
a discussion. Go for it.
I recommend that the select board appoint Andy Watts as the Essex Alternative Representative to the CCCUD for 1 year with a term ending December 31st, 2024.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Don. Thank you, Ethan. Any further discussion further discussion on the motion?
Andy gets to vote, right?
No, he does not.
No, he doesn't? Yeah, he does. That's what I thought.
I have to vote according to our policy,
Yeah.
otherwise I have to leave the room
Yeah.
before the discussion happens.
Oh, right, but if you're the interested party.
Yeah, it's confusing.
I know. I was gonna bomb the vote, but I remembered that.
Okay.
So say it's similar to if you're voting when you're electing chair, vice chair, clerk.
I'm just
the person-
picking on it,
True.
but I didn't
Okay.
remember that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think you can vote on your own appointment.
Thank you for that. That just kind of sent me down a rabbit hole in my brain. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay.
Hey.
Motion passes 4-1. I will hand the gavel back over to you, Mr. Chair.
Thought you were going to keep it.
I mean, I can. If I want to.
All right, move on to consent.
I make the motion we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Don. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ethan. Further discussion about consent?
I would just note for transparency's sake that I asked Aaron Martin, our Public Works Director, to give me some data on the click time, just so the board is aware of that.
Okay. Any?
Can we ask Aaron if he has any concerns about these things? Both the force main replacement or the Route 15 water line upgrade? Any
I don't
concerns?
think he'd bring them to us if he had concerns. Yeah.
Definitely would.
Okay, just checking. I mean, he sat here all night. I think he should have the opportunity to tell us. It's just nice.
No, I'm just glad that the water line has been a project that's been out there for quite some time. It's spent a lot of time in right away and design, so to see it finally come to construction is going to
Kendall?
Would this be the time with the consent agenda where I could ask a couple questions about the Sand Hill Road traffic study? It is in the consent agenda, I believe.
Yeah. Sure. We can't have a big discussion about it because it's in consent. But.
Yeah, no,
Go
just
ahead.
a couple questions. Patty Davis brought up that I believe she has some documents that state that originally the developer was supposed to complete Thompson Extension.
I had him come up so in case he can answer his question.
That's my only specific question, and I think that would relate to the study. If the developer was originally supposed to complete the extension to Route 117?
That I can't speak to. I know over the years since I've been here, there's been conditions of approval for that whole industrial park and the build out and when that connection is made. I know there was another development that's now a solar array in that area that was supposed to interconnect. Obviously, solar panels are there now. They're not going to be building any new buildings or infrastructure there. So I don't have an answer for that. I think bringing on a consultant at this point, a third party that's not the town, to come in and do a comprehensive study in that whole area of town, our industrial zoned area, and the truck traffic in and out of it. I know there's going to be a significant public outreach component to that, so the community will be heard, and hopefully this study can kind of come up with a solution to some of the concerns that the residents do have out there that we could implement as either the select board or as part of any conditions of future growth out there in the industrial park.
Okay, yeah, that was my question.
I haven't had a chance to digest this since you just came in tonight. These are the materials from Ms. Davis. Looking at it quickly, it looks like at least part of this was an Act 250 application versus a local town permit. Again, I haven't had a chance to digest and see what that means, but
Yeah, the only thing germane to this was if it would affect the Sand Hill Road study, and it doesn't appear that it will, so that was all I needed to know.
Yeah, it's always been my understanding that as the properties are developed, the road would get extended.
Okay.
But I don't, again, I don't know.
And didn't ownership change too somewhere along the way?
I think so. Yeah.
That's what I thought.
I can't remember where, when, or what, but yeah.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments about consent? Ethan?
I just have a board member comment really quick, but as anybody.
We haven't approved consent.
Oh,
yet.
sorry.
We're still on, is it about
sorry.
consent?
Nope, I have a board member comment.
All right, all those in favor
Forgot where we were.
approving consent, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Okay, consent is approved. Now, board member comments. Go
Oh,
ahead,
hey.
Ethan.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thanks, Aaron. Yeah,
Thanks, Aaron.
I was just curious because we've heard a lot about Sand Hill in the past couple weeks, months, I should say. Has anybody from town staff reached out to anybody about that road?
Anybody, meaning who?
Like planning or Greg or?
Yes, but, and so I guess I can tell you what we've done and see if that answers your question. So, followed up with the residents who attended that meeting, everyone who put down their email address as much as I could decipher it. I think I didn't get a couple of them totally accurately, but followed up with them once Aaron and once Public Works and ComDev put this application together. We put that out to let them know that it was going to be out there. A couple of residents reached out who had spoken at the meeting. We sat down with them. It was Aaron, myself, and Kent Johnson, our town planner. Spoke to them to sort of hear their concerns, tell them where we were going, explain this UPWP application. Sent another follow-up email to the email list of residents that I have. We're going to be working at creating a web page to keep all these documents on there, direct people to that page if and when questions come up. That's what we've done. I'm not sure if that's what you were looking for.
Yeah, I was curious about that too, but I was also curious on, I don't know if it's anything you want to answer, but the other road that would be connected to Saxon Hill.
Thompson Drive?
That's been mentioned a lot, yeah.
Great.
I don't know if there's anything that was preliminary ideas and plannings had, or...
Yeah, to my knowledge, we have not reached out to anybody about that yet. One of the pieces of information that Public Works pulled together that to complete that road is about a $4.5 million cost. So we haven't gone much beyond putting a cost estimate on it at this point.
That wouldn't have to be a town-driven...
Generally, it would be the developer that would.
Right.
I think that's
Yeah.
part
I
of
was just curious. I know we were focusing on Sandhill, but I didn't know if anybody was thinking about the alternative. I know that those other details are
Mhm.
for some other discussions, but just thank you.
Yep.
Right, anything else? Board member comments?
I was going to ask a question about the town meeting. Senator Doyle used to put out a questionnaire, just general question. Has Essex ever done anything like that for its residents? Just a general, some of the questions going around town, kind of like a question.
So yeah, we've done surveys. We should do a paper one. I think Tammy did a online one last year, right?
Right, we did.
Paper and online, I think.
Yeah, for several years we did a paper one. This was pre-COVID, and it was a nice one page. We'd hand it out to people who walked in. It had explanation of what is town meeting, Robert's rules, the basic summary of it, and there was a 3-question questionnaire that people could fill out. I think. I don't know if you remember what it asked. It was, what did you like, what did you not like?
First year we got about 33 responses. The second year we got 2.
Oh, really?
And then the following year we didn't get any. Nobody filled it out. And what we did do an online one last year.
Right, we started that. I think we've done it the past 2 years, and that's been more successful. We do it after town meeting, and after the town meeting day vote. So we ask people, how'd you vote? If you voted no, what were your concerns? That type of thing. Yep.
Okay. Just curious.
So, yeah, try to get some feedback. It's good to know what people are thinking, and if we ever get to the point where we need to hold a revote on something for some reason, we'll hopefully have a step up and a leg up as to where direction to take.
Feedback of why people voted the way they did. Yeah. Any other comments or questions?
I'll end it one more. Just to let Parks and Rec know that if they can come up with a proposal for a pool like the lady put in there, that is a moneymaker for them. So.
Can I ask one really quick question, then we can all go because the national championship's on. But remember when we all took different turns and handed out information packets at like sporting events and things like that? And I don't know if this is okay.
On the merger stuff, yeah.
But Donald, tell me if this is totally wrong. But could we do not exit polling, but could we hand stuff out as people exited the polls if we volunteered? Your surveys. Is that okay?
I think
you can't impede the voter going to
as long
or
as they're
from
leaving.
to or from.
Oh,
the
to or
polls.
from. I thought it was just 2.
No, because another group impeded them leaving last time.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so.
So
no.
now it's either way.
Either way.
That's too bad because it's a good way to get information out. But I was just curious. I knew Don would tell me.
But but we did town meeting last year and 90 some odd people came. You could hand them out at that expo thing you do at the beginning, and here's your admission to the town meeting. You could do something like that. That's a start. But, and then use that in your online stuff.
500-600 people go to the polls during the day, and 90 people go to a meeting.
We did hand them out at when we were doing it previous years, and they just get scattered on the floor.
Yeah, nobody even looked at them. They just.
Okay.
Tracy, did you have a?
I changed my mind.
You sparked something for me, Ethan. Though
Go
that
ahead.
you bring up a good point of when the select board members would go out to the event and hand out information. That I think it happened around the time we were talking about merger, but it wasn't just about merger. It was about town meeting. It was about informing people about the budget, any items that are on the ballot.
It was all part of a packet we handed out.
Right. And I think you did it last year a little bit.
Yeah.
Or is that something you wanted? Yeah,
I did it
is
last
that something
year.
you want to do again this year? We can put that on a future agenda to take a look at stuff and information to hand out.
Hey, here's what it
Well,
takes
last
is
year
about
we went to
20%, but
Uncommon Coffee. Did one there, and I did one at the.
I went to the hockey
senior
games.
center.
Anything that can help public engagement. I think
So, yeah, sounds like there's a right.
Okay, we'll try to pull together a schedule of options and get it to you in the next meeting or 2.
Right. Yeah, we're running out of time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about that.
All right. Any other board member comments? Okay, we do not need to go into executive session, so
I make the motion. We adjourn.
we did the reading file. Yes,
That was
we did.
it.
Board member comment. I had to wait.
Okay, people. I make the motion we adjourn.
Thank you, Don. Thank you, Ethan. Non-debatable. All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay, motion passes 5-0. Thank you so much. Happy-
Perfect.